Welcome back to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we've got a truly compelling breakdown for you. We're going to navigate some incredibly stark emotional contrasts. We are starting with the raw, devastating realities of a massive natural disaster. But I promise you, if you stick with me, we're going to arrive at one of the most incredible stories of human triumph and resilience you will ever hear. We're looking at the recent catastrophic flash floods in Nepal, and we'll view them through the remarkable perspective of Gurkha veteran Harry Buddha Magar.
Okay, let's dive into this. Eyewitnesses who were watching from higher ground described the sheer terror of this event as like something out of a film. Just imagine that for a second. They could only watch helplessly as this unstoppable force of water simply swept civilization aside. It's a haunting image of chaos, and it really anchors our understanding of just how sudden and massive this event was.
So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. Devastation in the Himalayas. 2. The climate connection. 3. Tourism versus infrastructure. 4. A story of resilience. And finally, 5. Redefining the impossible.
Section 1. Devastation in the Himalayas. To really understand the macro scale of this disaster, we need to focus high up in the mountains, specifically along the remote Nepal-Tibet border. Here, an entire valley was suddenly thrust into a life or death crisis. 1,500. That is the staggering number of people feared missing in the immediate aftermath, alongside a tragic, confirmed death toll of over 160. Just let that number land for a second. We're talking about a massive, sudden displacement of life in an incredibly remote area.
And this brilliantly illustrates the unimaginable chaos the people on the ground experienced. I mean, it wasn't just water, right? It was debris, mud, and just unstoppable momentum. Entire homes and bridges were simply erased from the map. Eyewitnesses actually saw around 9 trucks literally carried off by the floodwaters, with people still inside. The force of the landslide that triggered this flood was so immense that locals initially thought it was an earthquake. They reported the ground shaking as if a 5.2 magnitude quake had just hit. One really heartbreaking account came from a teacher who spoke to his brother-in-law, a local liquor store owner. The owner called him crying, saying his entire house had been completely swept away, and while 3 family members were rescued, tragically his brother remained missing.
Moving right along to Section 2, the climate connection. So, how does something this massive just happen out of the blue? Well, let's look at the underlying causes, focusing strictly on the scientific findings and the data being reported by experts who are analyzing the aftermath. Early scientific hypotheses suggest a deadly combination of factors. The leading theory is that an avalanche of ice and rock high above the valley triggered the devastation below. But, why now? Experts point to the fact that the Himalayan region is warming up. Glaciers are rapidly retreating and melting. When you combine that fragile melting ice with the intense rains of the monsoon season, those mountains become incredibly dangerous, unstable environments. Let's move to and see how this builds when we zoom out to look at a broader global data set. Experts are actually connecting the local disaster in Nepal to extreme weather events happening elsewhere. In the Himalayas, melting glaciers and intense monsoons lead to these catastrophic flash floods. Meanwhile, over in the United Kingdom, sustained extreme heat waves led to the busiest ever period for emergency departments. We're talking nearly 2.5 million A&E visits across May, June, and July. It even caused nurses to collapse on shift. The data clearly shows that whether it's managing glacial melt abroad or mitigating extreme heat in domestic homes that simply weren't built for it, the need to adapt to changing environmental extremes is becoming a universal, pressing challenge for all of us. Section 3. Tourism versus infrastructure. Now, there is a deeply dangerous paradox here. On one hand, you have incredibly high tourism demand. The stunning natural beauty makes it this hugely popular spot. It's a classic destination for university students finishing up a gap year or retirees who have saved up for that big, once-in-a-lifetime adventure, completely off the beaten track. But on the other hand, you have deeply inadequate infrastructure. There was absolutely no early warning system for this flood. It came entirely out of nowhere. And when disaster strikes, the local area completely lacks the heavy rescue equipment and facilities needed. This forces a heavy reliance on foreign diplomacy, international support, and consular services just to mount a proper rescue response. And because of that high volume of tourism, a local tragedy immediately takes on an international scale. Tour operators like Alpine EcoTrek reviewed their travel logs and reported dozens of missing foreign nationals. This actually includes a 13-year-old girl as well as men and women aged between 44 and 65. It sparks this massive, complex diplomatic and rescue operation to locate people who were simply out there trying to experience the beauty of the world. Okay, section 4, a story of resilience. Having grasped the heavy reality of the disaster, we are now going to pivot and zoom in on a deeply personal story of survival. Enter British Army Gurkha veteran Harry Buddha Magar. Now, to understand Harry, you really have to understand his background. He is a Gurkha. These are soldiers native to Nepal who are recruited into the British Army, and they are globally renowned for their fierce bravery and resilience. Harry actually grew up in Nepal, right near the very disaster zone we've been discussing. In fact, nearby villages in his area were also hit by deadly landslides during this same monsoon season, so his personal identity is deeply, deeply tied to the region that is currently suffering.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer trajectory of Harry's life. While serving in Afghanistan, he stepped on an IED. He lost both of his legs above the knee and sustained severe injuries to his right arm. He openly admits he hit rock bottom, battling severe depression, alcoholism, and suicidal thoughts in those first few years. But then, he found sports and adventure. It gave him confidence, and he didn't just recover, he set his sights on his ultimate childhood dream. He went on to become the very first double above-knee amputee to summit Mount Everest, and he even completed the 7 summits. From the absolute lowest point a person can reach to literally the highest peaks in the world. Incredible.
So how in the world did he shift his mindset so radically? Well, it comes down to this profound realization. Harry noted that as a teenager, his goals were super superficial. He just wanted to look handsome. But losing his legs stripped all of that away. He said the best thing that happened after his injury was that he was forced to figure out who he truly was. He stopped trying to be someone else, let go of the superficial stuff, and finally discovered his true, authentic purpose. Which brings us to our final section, section 5, redefining the impossible. We can take the lessons of Harry's incredible life and draw them into a universal takeaway. Harry has actually channeled this entire journey into a new book titled Conquering Dreams. It even features a foreword by actress Joanna Lumley, who is the daughter of a Gurkha herself and a massive supporter of their community. Harry's ultimate goal with this book isn't just to tell his own story. It's to actively inspire people with disabilities, or really anyone facing hardship, to prove that with a positive attitude, you can overcome absolutely any background or tragedy. So the crucial point is this. During his interview, Harry was dealing with a massive amount of emotion. He was actively mourning the recent death of his great friend and mountaineering hero, Nirmal Porcha. And at the exact same time, his phone was blowing up with horrific news of the flash floods devastating his home country. Yet his philosophy held completely firm. He noted that we cannot control the tragedies that happen in life, whether it's an IED, the tragic loss of a friend, or a massive natural disaster, but we completely control how we respond to them. Which leaves us with this final thought. We've seen the unstoppable, chaotic power of nature today, but we've also seen the unbreakable strength of the human spirit. I mean, Harry Buddha Magar literally climbed Everest without legs to prove a point to all of us. So, looking at your own life, how will you choose to respond to the insurmountable mountains in front of you? Think on that for a bit. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.